Do you want help keeping track of all of the sights, sounds, textures, places, people that your doodle needs positive, ongoing, and quality exposures to? Don't try to keep track of it all in your mind. Use my free puppy socialization checklist. You can find it for free at thedoodlepro.com/socialization. Before we jump in, I want to share a quick note of gratitude. This episode, The Truth About Growling, was named a 2-time finalist by the prestigious Dog Writers Association of America in their annual writing competition. I am deeply honored by that recognition. I also want to thank my guest, Michelle Stern, for this conversation. Episodes like this matter because they help doodle parents better understand communication, emotion, and safety. And I'm grateful for voices willing to bring clarity to topics that are often misunderstood. Let's get into the episode. One of our most popular guests, Michelle Stern. You might recognize Michelle from her episode all the way back in the archives discussing how to advocate for your doodle around children. Because yes, even doodles can have trouble with children, and we want to make sure that we have happy, healthy, and safe relationships with them. And Michelle is the founder of Pooch Parenting. And not only is she a certified dog trainer, but she's also a former school teacher and brings an expertise together that is quite unusual. So we are going to be discussing growling today, and it's a really hot topic. And I'm so happy to have Michelle here to join us.
Corinne, thank you for having me back.
So happy you're here.
Me too.
When I mentioned that we are discussing growling, I think that there's almost like a visceral response that people have, even to hearing the topic. When I think about growling, I think of how people respond to it emotionally from the human side of things. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I love that was your first reaction to it, actually, because it put it into a different perspective for me. Just hearing you say that, because what it made me realize is that it almost is like they're in trouble. Like growling means that my dog might not be perfect. My dog might be a bad dog. My dog has feelings that are unpleasant. And none of us want our dogs to feel unpleasant. None of us do. However, we love communication, and communication is a great thing. Now, do we like that our dogs are feeling bad? No, we definitely don't. However, with a little bit of knowledge and forethought, we can take a look at who our dog is, how our dog is actually feeling in any given moment. And then we can say, oh, you know what? I can actually shift the dynamics here. I can help you to feel different so that you don't feel bad moving forward. So growling is a triggery sort of topic because we don't want it to reflect poorly on us, because our dogs, for many of us, our dogs are a reflection of ourselves, even though that's not actually accurate. That's a whole nother topic.
Feel like it though. Yes.
It does.
Just like children. Yes.
And if our dog isn't feeling good, then maybe we see that as a failing, that we have done something wrong that allowed them to feel poorly. But in reality, I like to try to flip it on its head. And I like to try to say, you know what? If your dog is growling, I want you literally to say the words, thank you, to your dog. Somebody said to me, what do you mean, thank you? Like, how do you thank your dog? I said, you actually say the words, thank you.
Like, it is a mindset
literally,
piece.
Yes. I literally want you to say the word, thank you, sweetie. I appreciate you telling me that something is wrong. Now, I know this is going to come up in our conversation later, so I don't mean to be a spoiler, but I've got a puppy here. I have a teenage dog, and my puppy gets very close right up to the barrier that I have between my senior dog and the kitchen where I am right now, for example. And my senior dog growls at her a lot. And I sometimes admit that I get a little frustrated, and I'm like, God, why are you standing right next to the gate? Because you wouldn't be growling. You wouldn't be feeling bad.
You'd have room.
Move away. You have an entire room that you could move into. And yet she's conflicted because she wants to be close to me. And the puppy worships her, as any little sibling does with an older sibling. The puppy thinks my older dog is the bee's knees. And there is growling. Now, when I'm in my best state, I tell Barley, my old lady, hey, thanks for letting me know the puppy's annoying you. And I either move my senior dog farther away or I move the puppy towards me and try to give her an alternate behavior to do so that my senior dog doesn't have to pitch a fit about it.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, they're having a conversation, and the conversation goes something like this. Puppy energy, annoying. She's a menace.
Pest.
And total pest. Senior dog, I'm told for this junk. I don't want to put up with your shenanigans. You're in my space. You're so annoying. I wish you didn't exist. And then me being referee saying, you know what? I'd rather you growl at the puppy than bite her face off, which is the alternate, right? The alternate is if I don't communicate, I take action. And when you're living in a family with multiple dogs, maybe you've got a few kids, maybe you're expecting and you're having a baby soon, or you have a toddler who's on the loose. Toddlers are a menace like puppies are, where they're just all over the place.
Grabbing your things.
They're
tugging,
unpredictable. They're exploring their world. They're just trying to figure things out. But that's very uncomfortable for a lot of dogs. And so at the end of the day, while growling feels really bad to us as like the human side of things, it is something to be celebrated, which really is counterintuitive. But at the end of the day, our dog is saying, I really need some help. Help me out.
Yeah.
Why aren't you watching? Why aren't you intervening? I am telling you I need help. And that's good. We want them to ask for help instead of take action first.
And let's just call out what those feelings we on the human side of things feel. I hear a lot of people worry that growling is a sign of aggression. And so if my dog's growling, they're dangerous. Do you want to touch on that?
Yeah, since I'm a dog and child specialist, I get emails, often panicked emails or messages or Instagram, whatever DM from people who are really worried. And they're like, do I have a bad dog? Do I have to get rid of my dog? Is my dog dangerous? I had one person message me and say, do I have to euthanize my dog? And I'm like, wait, let's slow down for a second.
Yeah.
Because we have to evaluate the entire set of circumstances. I don't want you to jump to any conclusions, but what we need to do is we need to get curious, right? So getting curious is your number one job, aside from like keeping everyone alive and safe, obviously. But like getting curious about why is there a certain behavior? What could have caused it? How could we intervene? Can we shift how the dog feels instead? Now, I actually would say that a dog who growls, we cannot label that dog necessarily. We don't have enough information because we haven't been curious enough yet, and I don't have enough data. And unfortunately, I know you experience this as well because you are niched with doodles, and people have doodle questions and they think this will be a real quick question. And let me just ask you this real quick. And they think that we can answer all the questions in a quick DM, but you and I wouldn't have viable businesses if we answered all the questions via a quick DM or a voice.
If it were that easy, Google would have done it already. Yeah.
Yeah, no kidding. So we really need, first of all, to devote more time to each of these issues. They deserve more of our time. So we have to think about it. We have to look at the history. We have to look at the individual dog. We have to look at the circumstances. We really have to, like I said before, get curious, but I really think about the little Sherlock Holmes hat and my magnifying glass. And I think, all right, let's get down and dirty and think about this. But I also want to think about how everyone's feeling, because you nailed it, where how we feel is instrumental in how we run a household. It's how we function as parents, how we function as business owners, how we function as multitasking humans, right? We are dog moms and dads. Sorry, dads, if your dad's in here, but we're dog families and we have other jobs as well. But if we don't think about our fears and our concerns and our worries or what we're actually capable of putting our attention on, then we can't serve anybody. Are we too scared to function? And if that's the case, then you got to bring someone like you or me in to give you the support you need, the professional support you need. You may not need professional support. You may need to just be really honest and say, you know what, I had a really bad day and I got mad at Barley for growling. I didn't give it the curiosity it deserved to try to identify why Barley was growling. I just was snappy because I'm not well or I'm sick or whatever, right? I'm tired. But at the end of the day, we need to look at the circumstances. We can't label a dog for one behavior, just like we can't label a human for one behavior. We could have one bad day.
We're not
one bad hour.
Yeah.
It doesn't make us a bad person, right? You could do a bad thing and it doesn't make you a bad person. It's an accident or whatever. Instead, we can try to put a happier spin on it and say our dog is talking to us and asking for help. And so if I like to look at it that way, we can't say your dog is aggressive. I would say if a dog reaches out and lunges at you and bites you a few times without growling, yeah, that's an aggressive situation that deserves significant attention. But a dog that just growls, I think, is a dog that's asking for help instead.
Yeah, if I'm getting my detective hat on and I'm looking for clues, to me, growling does not equate aggression. Those two, it isn't a clue of aggression. It could be part of, if a dog is aggressive, it could be part of it. But I think it's a kind of a trigger for us. Do I have a bad dog or a dangerous dog? And a lot of Doodle parents, this is their first dog. And so this feels unfamiliar. Another thing I hear a lot is, oh, I had to roll them on their back, scruff them, yell at them. Like I needed to nip that in the bud. I need to make sure that doesn't happen again. So those listening, Michelle is shaking her face and her head in exasperation here.
Yes.
But have you heard these as well?
Oh, gosh. A lot of those concepts are old-fashioned and outdated, and they don't represent science. The research suggests that learning happens better when the learner feels safe. And I come from a teaching background. I'm also a mother, and I have 16 years of teaching under my belt. And I can tell you that if one of my students was hungry, sick, in pain, sad, scared, experiencing trauma or anything else, that learning is not going to be adequate, that they're going to be not receptive to taking in new information. And so by scaring a dog in the moment that they do a behavior that we think is inappropriate, we're first of all teaching them not to trust us because we just did a scary thing out of the blue. We didn't stop the thing that made them growl. We didn't make them feel safer. We made them feel more scared. So then they either escalate their behavior and use teeth, or they stop communicating altogether, and then they become what we call unpredictable. Because a lot of times, you and I have both heard this, he bit out of the blue, right? This is a very
nowhere.
Out of nowhere. It happened out of nowhere. It took me by surprise. And those are generally, not always, behaviors that happen because the dog has been punished in the past for expressing themselves before. Oftentimes, dogs are incredible communicators, and most dogs actually communicate in many ways before they growl.
Yes.
What some professionals, one person that I respect a lot that I know is Chirag Patel, and he is remarkable. And he likes to use an expression which goes like this, which is that body language, the way that our dogs move their bodies and express themselves with their eyes and their ears and their position, etc., that those are whispers. He calls those whispers, and he says they're very quiet and you're going to miss them if you're not paying attention. And then if you're not paying attention, then they escalate up to growls, which he calls more like in the shouting range and the yelling range. And then beyond that, it becomes physical, because if you completely are ignoring all of those signs, then the dog is going to escalate and do something potentially very dangerous. So what our goal should be is to notice the whispers, because then the growling doesn't even have to be an issue, right? So when people ask me, how do I stop my dog from growling? I think, wait, okay, here's one way, in a good way. The good way to stop your dog from growling is notice their discomfort before they growl. Your dog never has to growl if you're paying attention, right? However, we don't stop growling in the way that the old school thinking is by punishing the growl. Instead, we say, oh, I am sorry. I let you down. I blew it. I didn't notice how you were feeling. I'll do better next time. But we never want to punish the growl, because then things do appear out of nowhere in the future.
Those are the dogs that the growl has been punished out are the ones I'm more nervous about working with.
Yep.
Because they have been taught they're not allowed to communicate, that communicating with me is scary.
Yeah.
And all that's left is them feeling cornered in teeth. That's all that's left when they have nothing else, because it's already been said as scary. I hear your little puff here.
That's actually my older one.
Junior?
Pippin. There's
that-
Pippin. We got the full house. There she is.
Oh, hello, you beautiful.
This is Olive.
Hi, Olive. Tell us how old Olive is.
Olive is 4 months old now.
Oh my gosh, she's grown really fast.
I know. She's huge. I want to put a pause.
Yes.
Yeah. I would like to pause.
And what breed dogs are yours again?
These two little ones are border terriers.
Mhm.
And my older one is 3 years old, the one who's whining. He does this a lot when I'm on podcasts and
can tell.
interviews, which is
Yes.
so fun. And then my senior dog is a 70-pound mix of some sort, shepherd, something. I don't really know, to be honest.
It's a good little pack you've got going on.
Yeah, it keeps me busy.
Yes. So when we're talking about those whispers, reading dog body language is not intuitive for humans. Like it takes studying just like learning a different foreign language. So don't be hard on yourself if we're talking about these subtle whispers. It really does take studying. And then on top of it, Doodle's coats and the haircuts we give them hide a lot. So I can't see hackles on a long-coated Doodle. That's the hairs that stand up in between their shoulder blades. That curly, floppy coat, I can't see that change in direction.
Yeah.
If we've got a docked tail, I can't tell the angle of the tail very well. Or that curly kind of poodle where it's hanging over the back. The tail's never low. It physically can't even go down. The beard hanging over the mouth makes the tight muzzle impossible to see. The lip curl a lot harder. So it doesn't mean that they're not whispering. We have to listen even closer for our pups that are in those teddy bear coats. Sit and stay right there. We'll be back right after this quick break. Dogs' body language is a foreign language to us humans. Are you wondering how fluent you are? Take our free quiz at thedoodlepro.com/body and find out how fluent you are in reading dogs' body language.
Yeah, that's a really good point because part of what makes Doodle so incredibly adorable is that they're floofy and they're like big stuffed animals. So I would agree with you. That does make things harder. What we really need to do for the Doodle's benefit, of course, is we need to make sure we can see their eyes, because if we can't see their eyes, then they can't see very well because they're operating through a veil of floof. If we can see their eyeballs, though, then we can look for things like, are we noticing the whites around their eyes? Do they look surprised? Are they looking away? We can look at where their eyes are headed. What are they looking at, for example, or what are they averting their eyes from? Body tension is a good one. If you can notice that under the fur. The puppies are wrestling now, so this is going to be fun. But I always like to tell people that I like to keep it real because it is how it is when you have dogs. But you can see, for example, if a dog is loose and waggy, right? Let's imagine that wonderful, sweet, happy, like an S-shaped body where the dog is wagging its tail and the tail is hitting itself in the eye. You know what I'm talking about? Where they bend into that.
Body is rolling with that wave.
So imagine that, right? That's what we call loose. Everybody can imagine that. Okay. So then imagine the looseness changes suddenly. So let's pretend you have a 3-year-old child and they're pushing a push toy that makes really crazy noises. And your dog was happy. And then the kid comes in with the noisy toy, bam. And then the dog goes still. Okay. Now that's an interesting change. We can notice that. So while we may not be able to see the exact body position, the exact tension in the skin, because we can't see the skin under the fur or hair. What do you call it? Fur or hair?
I would say hair or coat.
Under the coat. Let's say coat. Coat's a good
There we
one.
go.
Okay. So if we can't see the actual skin under the coat, we can notice what the body is doing.
Yeah.
So if the body was wiggly and soft, and then it stops being that way and it goes fairly still or rigid, there is tension there, right? So even if we can't see those subtle things, another good one that we can notice, a good whisper, and this one was a surprise to me actually before I knew, is when a dog lifts one paw. Now you might imagine this in a pointer, let's say, a German short-haired
Like you
pointer.
picture a hunting painting. Yes.
Or something. The dog is up, one foot is up, the tail is out. We're imagining such a thing. But a lot of dogs who are uncomfortable will lift one paw. They're not channeling their inner setter, or they're not like spotting a bird and going to go chase it or anything else. But they are uncomfortable. And sometimes it's because your baby's having a tantrum, or because your spouse is having a tantrum, or because you are having a tantrum, right? Or whatever it is. So sometimes what happens is we see something that's unusual, and I want you to pause and notice that. We can also notice if our dog is yawning, because yawning is a great sign that sort of says something's weird, something is going on. I'm uncomfortable. And it's not necessarily like you're going to notice. It's not because your dog just woke up from a nap or something. It's literally like yawning because something is going on in the immediate environment.
Yes.
I'm going to grab some treats while
Go for it, Michelle. Michelle's doing that. I'm going to peek in the comments to see who's here.
Okay.
And I see Rebecca's here, and she shared, I don't mind when my dog growls, especially since I work from home alone. He's communicating with me, but I want to teach him when to stop growling when I ask help.
Okay.
Again, and just to give a little context, this pup is a bit nervous sometimes and fearful.
Okay.
So
that's great information. Thank you. So I would actually push you. You said Rebecca? Is that who asked the question? Okay. So Rebecca, I'm going to actually challenge you a little bit. And I want to ask you why you want to ask your dog to stop growling. Is it because you don't like how it feels to you that your dog is growling? Is it because you're frustrated that your dog is having feelings like that, like I'm afraid, and you wish that your dog wouldn't be afraid? Because from a mindset perspective, you can't just ask someone to stop being afraid. So, for example, my son is afraid of spiders. He's now 20 years old. He's still afraid of spiders, but he is adapting. He is learning to cope with spiders. He now knows he can move away from spiders, etc. But when he was really little, it was almost significant enough that we would have a full-blown freak-out attack where he would be crying and he'd be afraid to go to his room at all for the next couple of hours, etc. And I can't just walk up to him and be like, get over it. It's just a spider. Stop being afraid of spiders, right? Because that's not being sensitive necessarily to the reality of his feelings. I might not share those feelings. I might think that spiders are nothing to be afraid of because I actually like spiders myself. So I'm weird like that. But because I have a different perspective, I don't necessarily have the same empathy for his fear, for his feelings, right? So Rebecca, feel free. I don't know if you can comment, but
she did. She said, I would like him to stop growling so he doesn't cross threshold and go into full anxiety mode.
Okay. So what we need to do then is I would worry less about the growling continuing and spend more energy on identifying what it is that's the trigger. What is it that puppy is growling? And then what you can do is you can build trust there, right? And if he goes over threshold, if he's afraid, he's allowed to go over threshold, right? Some people panic and hyperventilate and they're over threshold and it sucks. But in the future, we can think about how can I avoid the circumstances that triggered such extreme feelings, right? So maybe it's that the neighbors are doing construction and the repetitive sound of the construction equipment is just more than your dog can handle. So then, because you've been curious and you've identified that's the thing that's making your dog afraid, then maybe what we do is we work from a different room inside the house, something more interior with fewer windows, fewer sounds. Maybe we use a fan where we block out the sounds, or we use a noise machine. There's a lot of things we can do. I play music, for example. I'll show you right here, just a little portable speaker that sometimes I'll just play music depending on how my dogs are feeling. But there's a lot of strategies that we can implement that help to remove some of the triggers that are causing the dog to have those feelings. So I don't think it's fair for you to ask your dog to stop having feelings, honestly. And I'm saying this with love. Like, I'm not shaming you in any way. I'm just saying I think you need to get in your dog's head a little bit and think, okay, if I were having really big feelings and I was being expressive of those feelings, how would I want someone to respond to me? And what I would like is I would like that person or animal or whoever to be like, let me help you because I'm going to remove the triggers that are causing you to feel this way.
And I know we're in a similar generation, all of us chatting here, where many of us, when we were young, were told to cut out crying. Like, cut that out. Stop your crying. Some of us even told, I'll give you something to cry about, which I'm not saying. I know that. Yeah. But words I haven't uttered to my kids. Our kids don't know how lucky they are. And I'm not saying Rebecca's doing that in any way. But when we think back to when we were told to stop crying or enough of that, it didn't change our underlying fear or sadness or whatever the emotion was that we were expressing. We just stopped expressing it. Right. So what I'm hearing you say is if we keep that curious hat on, what is the anxiety about? If we just stop the expression, it's not calming me down. I'm just being silent about whatever was causing me to cry as a little kid.
Yeah. And I'm going to give a really extreme example.
Okay.
And it's a depressing example. So I apologize in advance.
Okay.
But one of my children is adopted from Guatemala. And he was in a foster family. I intentionally chose a program that did not have kids in an orphanage and chose a foster family because I wanted him to have had his early months with a person who was responsive.
Connection. Yeah.
And there are orphanages in China, in comparison, where babies don't cry anymore because they have something called learned helplessness. And learned helplessness is essentially a way of describing that communication stops because the creature has learned that it is no longer effective. Like,
no one's coming.
Why waste the energy? Nobody's coming to help me anyway. Why bother? And so these babies don't cry anymore. And these are babies. Like, they're hungry, they have wet diapers, whatever. They don't cry. They're just silent and non-communicative. And dogs can have what's called learned helplessness as well, where if they feel so disregarded, then they just roll over and hope it goes away. And sometimes what we see is if you take your dog to the vet and they're extraordinarily fearful, they just shut down. And it looks like compliance. It looks like they are like...
Or the groomer. Yep.
Yes. This is huge with grooming, right? Groomers... Not good groomers love dogs when they go dead because they are easier to groom because they just let you do whatever.
Yeah.
But these are dogs that are just shut down and they're so overwhelmed that they're not expressing their feelings. And so I try very hard to build trust and positive relationships with animals. To me, that's one of the most rewarding, amazing things about animals is knowing they can come to me for love or for snuggles or for whatever it is they need. They're hungry. Like my dogs right now, I'm throwing food all over the place.
Good things are coming from mom here.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. It's very much, okay, you need something. Let me help you. And I'm going to try this. And if this doesn't work, then I'll try something else later. But anyway, learned helplessness is really sad. And it's a depressing example, but we do want to try to address the underlying cause, try to figure out what it is that they need so that they feel seen. Because I think that's a huge piece of a good relationship.
That's very helpful. And I can speak to observing Rebecca with her dog, Charlie, that she is his safe space and safe person and adores over the moon. So she's already ahead of it. Yes. And she actually asked a great follow-up question that I think is helpful to everyone. Can you explain the difference between barking and growling?
Ooh, fun one. Yeah.
I feel like I can't do that without making sounds.
Yeah, don't do it. Please don't bark at me right now. If you bark at me, we might end up with a whole house of barking dogs. And terrier barking is nothing to be messed with. You feel it in your bones. Okay. They're both communication. Barking is often done for different reasons. It can be done out of excitement or enthusiasm. Hey, mom's home or dad's home or whoever's home. The kids came home from school. Like my senior dog, Barley, has a really funny bark. That is a woo bark. That's her happy bark. And it's different than the, like, somebody delivered a package at the door bark. That's totally different. Yeah. And so you can tell different feelings sometimes by the tone of the voice. And that takes time. Barley is 14 and a half years old. So I've had some time to get used to
Yeah.
her different sounds. Barking can be out of fear. It can be a fearful response. It can be an arousal response, like I'm so excited, or it can be an alert. So it can, if your dog is mixed with a guardian breed, for example. So let's say you have an Aussie Doodle or something
Which
else.
this pup is, yes.
Oh, there you go. You're looking at a dog that is trying to keep a group of creatures safe. That's the Aussie piece of it, is I want to control the environment. And if there's something out of my control as an Aussie, then sometimes I tell you how I feel about that with my voice.
Yeah.
And I will also try to move things around in the environment. We sometimes call these dogs the fun police because they like things how they like them. And they can get really upset if the X's, the I's are not dotted and the T's aren't crossed. They like things where they like them, right?
Yeah.
And so sometimes we'll see barking as a way of being frustrated, for example. Another type of barking could be what we call demand barking. So demand barking is something that's fairly common in my world, where we have somebody who, let's say, has a new baby, and the dog who is their first baby, their fur child, is having a real hard time sharing attention with the family because they're now second fiddle, unfortunately. It doesn't have to be like that forever, but in the beginning, everyone has to learn.
Mom's sitting and nursing, using a bottle. That's all you got. That's all you can do. You got to finish the feeding. Yeah,
exactly. And so some dogs think that just sucks. And they're like, you know what? This blows. I'm really unhappy and I'm going to tell everybody about it. And I'm going to complain, and it might be accompanied by other behavior. It might be accompanied by jumping or by pawing, like they may paw at you. And these are all things to say, excuse me, I am your beloved and you're ignoring me. And so we call this demand behaviors because they're demanding your attention. Barking comes in all different forms. And again, everything is very circumstantial. And by putting on that detective hat, yet again, we have to think about the circumstances. Are they afraid? Are they telling us something? Do they have to poop? And they're saying, dude, you're not paying attention. I got to go. And you're not noticing. And so I'm going to tell you about it. Or it's 5:01 and dinner was at 5:00. And I'm sorry, but you are tardy and this is a big problem, right? So there are alarm clocks, etc. So barking can happen for a lot of different reasons. Growling, though, is really, I don't want to say it's more important. It's the one that gets our hackles up because that's the one I think we have in our primitive brain associated with danger, right?
Yes.
Like the bear coming to chase us. The growling is like that, where we're like, oh gosh, okay, I better take things a little more seriously right now, right? So we really have to get curious and yeah, just take action. And sometimes taking action means stepping away, right? So
that's okay.
Action is a big thing, but action doesn't always mean swooping in. Sometimes it means giving the dog space and saying, whoa, you know what? You were sleeping on the couch and we have some resource guarding that we're working on and you were telling me to back off. I am going to back off, not because then you get your way or you get what you want or whatever else, but I'm going to back off to make you feel safe in the moment. And then we need to revisit the whole you on the couch thing, because if you're guarding the couch and being inappropriate, then I think you lose that privilege, for example. So you can then change the rules later, right? But we need them to feel safe in the moment so that they don't escalate and use teeth, because that's usually what escalation leads to, snapping, air snapping, and by the way, dogs don't miss. So if you say my dog tried to bite me,
they would have.
That's a misunderstanding. Yeah. The dog is warning you and the dog is saying, dude, I am really serious and you're blowing it. And they do not miss by accident.
Yeah. Said. And I see growling as more solidly associated with fear, anxiety, or stress, unless it can sometimes be heard during play or things like tug. And that can be pretty triggering to us too when you hear two dogs. Like, I'm sorry, I'm not going to make the sound.
No, yes.
Get your dogs going. I'm sorry. For our listeners. But there are dogs that are more vocal. My late poodle, Hershey, she was very vocal.
Yeah.
And I like a trainer trick of, if you videotape the play, watch it on mute. Is the body really loose, S shape? Are they switching roles? One's on top, one's on bottom, the other, and then they switch. One chases, one's the chaser, and they switch. take a break. And if you think one is like the offender, take away the one that you're worried about, have them stop play, let them go. Do they run right back to the quote offender to keep going?
Yeah.
And let them do, we call that like a consent test. So if you hear growling during play or tug, that can sometimes bring out that like just visceral vocalness.
Yeah.
Those are dangerous.
Yeah, no, that's true. And in fact, terriers are famous for growling like monsters, like devil when they're playing. And it's hilarious. But I can see how if you're new to dogs, or if you're not sure, you can think, oh my gosh, is this safe? Is the dog,
is that an aggressive dog they're playing with?
Mm-hmm. And when in doubt, ask somebody you can trust. A dog professional can help you to translate, to be your translator. And again, if you're scared, then take a break. Breaks are good. And then we can see what the dogs are choosing to do, because nobody's forcing them to play tug. They're choosing to play tug. Now, the one thing that can be tricky is if there is, again, resource guarding of an item, and you have a dog that has a bone and another dog comes over and one dog starts really growling or snarling.
Not happy vocalization.
Yeah. And that's a warning, right? That's hey, excuse me, this is my precious item. And this is very normal, because if you imagine a street dog, for example, a street dog would be rubbish at survival if they couldn't protect their food resources. And all dogs have the ability to do this. It's a little scary, especially if we have kids. And there's things that we can do about it. And again, we're not going to punish it out of the dog. We're going to instead completely flip it on its head, and we're going to try to build trust instead. So instead of knock it off, you have to share. I'm going to put you in a shirt with your sister, and you have to wear it around the house for 2 hours together and get along. We don't do any of those shenanigans like that. And I know you know what I'm talking about.
I do. And as a teacher and parent, you've seen it all.
Exactly. So we're not doing any of that, those shenanigans. But what we're doing is we're saying, oh God, I'm so sorry. We know that's your special bone. Let me make sure you enjoy it in peace. So maybe then everybody gets their bone in a crate and everybody has their own bone and whatever. Or if the dog is upset when you need to take it away, then what we do is we move the dog, we take the dog outside, and while the dog is outside, we put all the valuable resources away, because you can never put yourself in danger. But again, we're not correcting, I'm putting correcting in these quotes, correcting the behavior, because it's normal behavior. And we
don't want to correct the communication, because then all they have left are actions.
Exactly. And dogs need to be dogs. They need to express themselves as dogs do. And that's fine. But we're not going to set up the environment so that the expression of that behavior becomes dangerous.
So let's use an example and just flesh it out for our listeners. A dog is sleeping on their bed and a child goes up to pet the dog while they're sleeping and the dog growls. How would you work through, and Michelle's smiling as this is her specialty and a common instance for families. How would you walk a family through? First, it feels scary to see your little one be growled at by a dog.
Oh, it's horrible.
That brings your protective mama bear out, right? So how do you help them work through an instance like that?
People don't like the answer I'm going to give them.
I know. That's why I asked it.
Okay. All right. I'm just making sure I'm about to give some advice that people are like, that's not what I wanted. I wanted to fix it.
Right.
The way to fix it is to not let your child approach a sleeping dog. Period. End of story. You have to manage your kids. That's it. You can prevent a lot of these things because you're managing your child. But I want you to think about this from a position of respect. I know that there are a lot of people who like gentle parenting, and they aren't big about like super hard structure and rules. But I'm here to tell you, both as a parent and as a dog professional, that dogs hang their hat on predictable patterns and routines, and so do children. They need to know what's coming. They need to know what the rules are. And they need to know that if you say something is a rule, that you follow through and enforce that is a rule. So we can't be wishy-washy, or they don't respect the boundaries that we put into place. For example, you could have a child that goes over and wants to touch the hot stove. And they're like, you tell them all the time, You can't do that. You can't do that. You can't do that. And yet you're not going to let them do it as a natural consequence because they're going to have a really bad burn, right? And that's a terrible way. You're not going to let somebody get hit by a bus to teach them to look both ways before to cross the street. So instead, you have to step up and you need to put boundaries in place and say, I can't let you do that. That's not safe. They're testing to see what you're going to do. Do you mean it? And in the case when you have kids and dogs in the same house, we can do this with a variety of barriers such as baby gates or pens. Those are my favorite strategies. You can close a door. You can divide the space in a million different ways. But then you need to enforce that and you need to follow through and say, you know what? I need you. This is the dog safe zone. We don't approach the crate. We don't approach the bed. If the dog isn't asleep ever, no matter on what surface, they're off limits. And you can play games with your kids to make it more fun. You can pretend they have to cross hot lava. You can't cross the hot lava to get to the dog on the bed. The dog is safe, or the dog is in a palace with guards or whatever floats your kid's boat. But you need to use a language that works for your child. And you need to make it understandable to them. Do unto others, shall we say, right?
Yes. Repeat consent and respecting other people's space and body and choices as foundational skills in life.
Yeah.
So this is just another layer so I've raised my kids doing this work with Doodles coming into my home. And there are 2 hard and fast rules that we never touch a dog when they're sleeping or eating ever. And we play with dogs when they come to us.
Yes.
So there's no chasing around, scooping up, or any of that. And again, I'm raising 2 young men. I want them to care. And I would want that with any gender, but I want them to care. Does the other person want this interaction, want touch, etc.? And I hope that these are lifelong lessons. And the growl is the same as saying, no, I don't like that from a friend. And we can stop there.
Yep. I love that. I think that's really great. I think that respect is key. And we can invite the dog over. Would you like to come over?
Hey, make kissy noises and their little name. Yeah.
And the dog can say no thanks.
And that's fine.
To teach them that's okay. And in some cases, if your kiddo is really persistent and is really trying to stick their arm through a baby gate, then we use 2 baby gates with an air gap in between. Yep. I've had to do all kinds of things with clients because at the end of the day, you're running a household and sometimes you have to turn your back.
Yes.
And if you're constantly worried, even if you have 1 baby gate in place, but your toddler is so sneaky, or maybe you have a really small puppy who can get through that little edge of the baby gate. Oh my God. When I first brought Olive home, I had a baby gate set up at the top of the stairs because, again, I had to keep my senior dog away. She's not trustworthy around other dogs. And Olive was so little in the beginning that in the one side of the baby gate where it was tension in the wall, there's a little gap. She squeezed right through. And I was like, oh, no. Okay. All right. Plan B. I need then I was trying to block it with other obstacles or whatever, or I had to
just waiting for her to thicken up.
Oh my God. Yeah. Pippin did the same thing when he was tiny. I put a baby gate in my bathroom to my closet because the closet has carpet, but the bathroom has tile. And I didn't want him to pee on the carpet. So when I was taking a shower, I was like, you're not going in the closet. He walked right through that baby gate. I was like, oh my God.
And all of these things are setting your dog up to be able to relax, to feel safe, not to need to be on alert and worried.
Exactly.
When your dog's in that pen and they know when I lay on my bed, nobody's going to bother me. And husbands do it too, where they see a sweet dog sleeping and they want to scoop them up and get cuddles. It's not just little children. Speaking from experience.
I know that you all can relate to this, but often you get the visitor that comes over who's like, all dogs love me. And I'm like, oh my God.
I'm a dog person.
Like, come on. My dog hates strangers. I don't care if other dogs love you.
They don't know that.
And how about a little consent here? Stop. My dog is off limits to you, even though you're amazing. Great. I'm so proud of you. I'm glad that's your feeling of yourself. But don't let anyone bully you into thinking that you're being too controlling of the environment. Because at the end of the day, if a dog doesn't feel safe, game over.
Yeah. And
Well
let's listen to those whispers before they get to the growl and respect the whispers and not just, oh, they'll get through it. They'll get over it or they'll get used to it.
Mm-hmm. They shouldn't have to get used to anything. We need to do better.
And they usually don't. If they feel scared or nervous,
yeah.
Fear when left alone in dogs, just gross. And it's really easy to instill and really hard to train out.
Yep.
That's my little soapbox. But one of our members asked an excellent question. Ina asked, can a dog learn helplessness bypassing the growling phase? Odin stiffens and tolerates a lot, but has never growled at us.
I'm going to push you again, Michelle the Hammer. Tolerance. I want you to just think about it. Odin shouldn't have to put up with stuff. Let's try to change how we feel about that. So can you give me an example of what he puts up with?
I would share something we had discussed before, bath time.
Yeah.
He froze, just watching him on video, he froze, looked away, eyes away, just looked as if he could disappear, he would have.
Oh,
he saw the clue. I know. He saw the clues. Bath time was coming.
Okay.
And he didn't do an audible growl.
Yeah.
But if he could have melted.
He was like hangdog. I'm imagining like Eeyore, right?
Yes. And frozen with it. Okay. And Ina shared, she added hugs. He's the same with in bath time.
Okay. I love this. This is great. Hugs is easy. You have to stop hugging him for a little while. And that sucks. And I'm so sorry to tell you.
It's how we show love, but it is not how they show love.
I know. And it's the worst because you got a Doodle because they're so cute and they seem so huggable.
And he's big. Like you just want to squeeze him.
I'm sorry. I'm delivering very bad news today. Okay. So we're going to lay off on the hugs for a little bit. And you may be surprised. This sweet dog may come to you sometime and just knock your socks off by saying, hey, and maybe he'll lean into you. Maybe he leans in and you're like, he hugged me. And then you take it, but don't take advantage and be like, oh, and squeeze him because you're going to break the trust, right? Let him come to you. I want you to play hard to get. It's going to suck, but it's building trust. Unfortunately, that's the bad news on that one. The good news on the bath time is that we can teach him to get used to stuff, not by just putting him in the bath right away, right? We're going to need to slow down. Now,
break this down, yeah.
Exactly. Dogs don't always need as many baths as we think they do. And Corinne is really good at the whole doodle grooming thing. So I'll defer to her on this. But what I will say is that grooming from the perspective of getting the hair combed or brushed or whatever down to the skin so we're not getting matted is much more important than baiting.
Agreed.
And we can start to expose the dog to lots of cues that grooming is going to happen and pair them with positive experiences. So for example, I wish I had it with me. It's over by the sink. So I have all kinds of licky mats. So I have little textured licky mats. I have one that's a bowl, so it wobbles, and it's a licky mat wobble licky bowl or whatever.
Yes,
I love those. You know what? Those are cool. Yeah. They also make licky mats that have suction cups on them, so you can
perfect for the tub and shower area.
Exactly. And I was gonna say in the sink because I got little terriers, and so I can bathe them in.
Oh, it is a big boy. Yes, you're just showing off now.
Like the big. The other thing you could do if you don't have a licky mat on your first go around is, and this is gross, but I like to do gross things sometimes, is you literally stick your hand in the peanut butter jar. Make sure there's no xylitol in your peanut butter, by the way, just like straight up peanut, and smear it on the bathtub side, the side of the bathtub. You don't need a licky mat necessarily. You could put it on.
But don't do something that's on TikTok right now. I don't know if you saw this. No. Someone put saran wrap on their head.
Don't do it. Don't even.
I gotta tell, I have to finish it so people realize this. Okay. Smear the peanut butter on their forehead. If your dog gets anxious, you hit a tangle, anything, their mouth is on your head. We're acting like lion tamers here.
Yeah, no, that I saw that a while ago. It was so that you could distract them while you were trimming their nails. And I have to say that is like Darwin Award worthy, because all it takes is for you to make a mistake and hurt your dog and they bite your face off. So don't do dumb things. Yeah, don't do dumb things. I'm going to hold you accountable on this one. But my point is you can do really simple things. And I just
And
my
Ina
nails
actually
inside.
shared, we have started counter conditioning for both grooming and bathing.
Yes.
And he's at the point where he'll voluntarily come in the bathroom and eat snacks during the process.
Yes.
That's amazing.
Perfect.
Celebrating
Well, you already
nails.
nailed it. So that's what I was going to say. I would put the brush on the floor while he's eating breakfast. Put the comb next to his bed when he's doing a bully stick. These are all things where I present you this object and something amazing is going to happen. Object amazing. And do it till you're blue in the face. And it really is quite remarkable. Now, again, this is how we would teach a dog to have their nails trimmed as well. I want to play with your little toe beans. Toe beans are. I hope everybody loves toe beans. Okay. So I'm going to massage your little toe beans. I'm going to look at your feet. I'm going to put my hands in there because you might get foxtails or burrs or whatever. You might have snowballs in your dog's paws, all kinds of things.
All the time with us.
We have to be able to handle your feet, your inside your ears. Lift up the ear, give a cookie. Hold your foot, give a cookie or whatever it is, and change the value of the treats as well. Maybe string cheese is the thing that'll do it, that'll get you over the edge. Maybe it has to be hot dog. Maybe it has to be whatever your dog likes. Change the value because for dogs, value is different depending on the circumstances. And so maybe in certain circumstances, string cheese is the best thing ever unless some other trigger is present and then string cheese isn't good enough. And then you have to bring out like stewed chicken or roast beef or something. Yeah. So you have to think about it. Really, your dog is the one who decides what's rewarding, not us. We might think that we know what's rewarding, but if the dog disagrees with us, then we're wasting our energy. But counter conditioning is really helpful. You guys all have dogs that have extraordinarily high maintenance coats, and we really have to work hard on this.
And what Ina brought up is really important. Even if they're not growling, them just letting us do it isn't the goal.
Right.
And so that might be learned helplessness or they're just getting through it.
Yeah.
We don't want somebody to do stuff to us that we're just gritting our teeth and getting through.
Yeah. And I want to say, though, I don't want you to feel bad if you're in that phase right now, because I have a puppy and I put her up. I have a little grooming table on the deck. She doesn't love it, but I think it's weird. I think being up high and stuff is weird. So we go on the grooming table. I'm trying to figure out what treats help her relax while she's up there. And I clipped probably 4 of her toes, whichever ones she let me do. And she was like, moving her foot a little bit. And we're learning. We have to learn. I'm going to hold this and I have to move your little toe fuzz out of the way so I can see the nails because, everybody has toe fuzz and I can't clip the nail if I can't see it. And God forbid I clip too short, then I break all trust, right? Yeah. Learn, like I'm squeezing your foot just to hold it in place. I'm also squeezing the nail. That's weird. She might pull away a little bit, but I just hold on. I'm not being inappropriately forceful, but I'm saying, hey, bud, I'm going to do this for a second. I'm pairing it with food. It's not perfect yet, but it's going to get better. Now, my other dog is now at the point where when I pull out, so they're terriers, so I have a special grooming tool, that when I pull that tool out and have a special bowl of treats, he knows the bowl and he knows the tool, he runs to the grooming table now and he puts his feet out. Very interesting. He still doesn't love being groomed, but he loves parts of it. And so the fact that his behavior has shifted from like the, oh God, here it comes, to the, hey, cool, I'm down. Let me earn those treats in that bowl. That's a really big step in the right direction. So I don't want you to feel like you're going to be a miracle worker overnight because this stuff does take time. Yes. And unfortunately, you can't just not groom your Doodle because they're like putting up with it. But in general, putting up with things is too low of a bar. And I'd like to see a more positive response in reaction to those things.
And I've actually learned something big here. I had a little light bulb moment as you're talking about playing hard to get and not taking advantage of when the dog leads into you. I have a 13-year-old boy who used to love to snuggle. And man, I miss his hugs. But if he gives me a hug right now, I have to work really hard not to hold on and squeeze him. And so it's the same as we're talking about.
No, it really is. It's the same thing. And in fact, my daughter is about to graduate from college. And I used to it sounds so absurd, but I used to like want to eat her.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I would hug her so tight and be like, oh my God, I just want to eat you. And then one day she was like, you can't eat me anymore, Mom. And I was like, oh, you like tore out my heart and stepped on it. Like, and so now we joke about it. And I tell her how she hurt me so much by telling me I could no longer chew on her and be like, oh, I love you so much. I'm going to eat you up. But I do tell her, I'm like, can I please squeeze you as hard as I can? And she's, yes, Mom, of course you can. Again, it's some of this stuff is also developmental, and dogs and people at different stages go through different levels of enthusiasm for certain things. So puppies are generally, unless they're very scared, puppies generally are all in, game for anything.
Yeah. Scooby, let's do this.
Then shifts. Then as they mature and they're hitting social maturity, they're like, back off. I am. It's like the phase when you have little kids and they want to buckle their own seatbelt or tie their own shoes. My daughter Amelia used to say self. And I was like, oh God, here we go. Self, which means it's going to
be a pain and take forever.
Yeah, exactly. Everything's going to go slow because you have to do it yourself. And I'm sitting here, oh my God, it's torture. But dogs go through some of this where they have to decide, is it their idea? Is it your idea? Things shift over time. And you need to be aware of that. And unfortunately, you have to accept the fact that relationships ebb and flow over time and dynamics shift as your child grows, as your puppy grows into an older dog. And then senior dogs have a whole suite of other potential issues because then maybe they're sick or they have pain.
Aches and pains,
or whatever. And so we see some shifts in the dynamics of what they're willing to tolerate, or what maybe they used to like something and now it hurts. So you can't pat them on the bum because that's where their arthritis is. And so if you do that, they turn around and maybe snap at your hand and say, don't touch me there. And you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I forgot you're ouchie now because you're old. So things do shift over time.
Michelle, I really appreciate this. I know you have a gift for our listeners, a guide about growling called the ABCs of Growling.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this. I'm very proud of it. People seem to be very happy. Basically, the subheading, aside from the ABCs of Growling, is how to understand and respond to your dog. So this addresses some of the concerns that people have raised so far, where how do I know what it means? How do I prevent it? How do I notice the whispers? What do those whispers look like? I show you what they look like with some graphics on body language. And then we talk about how to help dogs feel safe, how to prevent them from feeling triggered enough that they need to growl in the first place.
Wonderful. I'll have the link for that in the show notes. And if people want to find you, where can they do?
I am at poochparenting.net, and I'm on Insta and Facebook at Pooch Parenting.
Wonderful. Michelle.